We are back with more NFL coverage, and in this video, I'll be covering a number of different developments that have happened over the past week. I wanted to get an earlier beat on everything. I did end up being later than I anticipated in terms of getting to some of these news, but we're still here, and we're definitely going to have a lot of information on the plate here. Most of the news that I will try to elaborate on here have come from Adam Schefter. So to get straight into it, the Jaguars would do something pretty interesting. They signed Travon Walker last week to a 4-year, $110 million contract extension with $77 million guaranteed. And when you think about Travon Walker, there are a lot of different ways to approach him as a player. I mean, one of the first things you'd heard about as soon as he got this contract in was the fact that, hey, as some people would say in the comments section, least talked about number 1 overall pick. And to their credit, there is a little bit of a point to that. Obviously, we've been able to see what Aiden Hutchinson, who was picked just after him in 2022, the same draft, go on to do in his NFL career so far. And when you have that happening, the entire just storyline within that, the hometown kid in Aiden Hutchinson being able to come back to Detroit and play for them after the Jaguars seemingly had house money, had an understanding that, hey, Aiden Hutchinson could be the top consensus edge rusher in this draft, and they still decided to go with a raw talent in Travon Walker. In some cases, yes, Aiden Hutchinson has kind of outperformed Travon Walker in a way. Clearly has a bigger deal up to this point, and that's kind of been the baseline. It's a little unfair to do that to Travon Walker because, again, he can't necessarily control how it is that Aiden Hutchinson is performing in Detroit. That falls more so on what exactly the Jaguars' mindset at the time was. All that Travon Walker can do and all that the Jaguars can look to get from him is his own quality style of play. And so far, it would appear that he has done just that. Now, again, there are a lot of different ways to navigate this. My thinking is that at the time, you still have Josh Hans Allen being a great edge rusher in his own right, and you needed that support in some way, shape, or form. The way I see it, they saw what Travon Walker was able to do in his last season at Georgia, really taking on more of a starting caliber role and just coming onto the scene. Frankly, out of nowhere, putting his athleticism on display and being a part of a Georgia unit that was just chock full of edge rushing talent. Once he got himself in that situation, the media started moving over to focus more on what it was that he was doing. And by that point, it was just out of here. So the Jaguars get him in 2022. And for this point, as of the recording of this video, he has seemingly been able to at least give them some solid production as a complementary edge rushing piece to Josh Hans Allen. And considering what they were able to do last year, the Jaguars, you consider that jump from being one of the worst teams in the NFL in 2024, flat out, to actually having a legitimate chance to compete in 2025. Part of that is the fact that, hey, Trevor Lawrence had that at least 5 to 7 week stretch late in the season where he just went nuclear and actually showcased his potential as a former number one overall pick himself. And kind of, hearkening back to that generational talent label that was bestowed upon him before he even got selected into the NFL. There's some credit that goes his way, but a lot of it had to do with how that defense performed. I mean, there were weeks in a row, especially with the first Texans game, that stands out to me off the top of my head, where they just completely shut down opposing offenses. You look back at that Texans game, the first one, last season, they literally could not move the ball down the field. It was a struggle all game long. And one of the lone times that they had a chance to, with C.J. Stroud marching them down the field after Christian Kirk had been able to make a few plays here and there, they swarm in, they deflect one of his passes, and then to seal off that particular game, they force a fucking strip sack fumble to win that one with a close score. And again, not allow the Texans at that point. Yes, they were dealing with some injuries, but they were completely nullified in that game. And that had kind of been the theme of the season. The fact that they were able to win some of those close games and keep offenses on their toes for at least a good amount of time definitely played to their benefit this year. Now, again, they were first-round exits, wild card exits, if you will. But if they can retain some of that defensive intensity on that side of the ball, by all means, this Jaguars defense isn't going anywhere. And you have to give massive respect to that. Now, it's not like every single piece has been in place for the Jaguars. They still want to figure out how to properly utilize Travis Hunter, who has gotten split reps, and less of them have been concentrated on the defensive side. They're also trying to get him back up to speed at this time, as they also reported that, hey, he's working on limited reps as he still tries to recover from injury. You also brought in Greg Newsome II. You brought in Monteric. Well, no, they lost Monteric Brown. You're trying to navigate all of those things with your entire defensive backcourt. And you, of course, want to try to keep that edge rushing unit intact for as long as possible. Now, for all of the success that the Jags defense was able to post last season, one could question if that was really a source of what it was that Travon Walker himself was doing. Last season, per the numbers, he played in 14 games, started in 12, and posted 3.5 sacks with 38 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, and 13 quarterback hits. Now again, it could be a situation where, hey, maybe he was getting a great amount of pressure overall in the season and just not being able to close much hurt him in the long run. And there are circumstances where that could end up being the case for him. But at the same time, that can prove to be a little bit of a risk in what ended up being a contract year for him. Now, throughout his entire career so far, he did post back-to-back double-digit sack seasons with 10 or more in 2023 and 2024, while playing and starting in all 17 games. Going immediately from a raw prospect to, okay, hey, he is a solid player. And he can, in the right situation, break the game wide open for us. So we can start to put a little bit more of our trust in him. However, his 3.5 sacks tied his lowest total in a single season, going back to his rookie year in 2022. And so if you're looking at that trend as the Jags front office, obviously they have in Gladstone their newest general manager, obviously coming from the Rams last offseason, right? You're looking at that and you're saying to yourself that, yes, this is a player we should keep around long term. But the debate is now, with the edge rushing market exploding, is he a player that is truly worth investing top 5, top 10 caliber money in? Maybe not. And if we do decide to execute this deal in that way, we have to kind of hash out some particular language. And so they did that. $27.5 million per year isn't really that expensive, considering, again, how much the market has changed. The entire landscape has changed completely for these kinds of contracts. So that's chump change compared to what some of the Micah Parsons of the world are getting right now, the TJ Watts of the world are getting right now, the Myles Garretts of the world are getting right now. Not that caliber of player just yet, but again, good enough to at least be a focal point of this team for the foreseeable future. And again, what matters is the $77 million guarantee. In the event that he does continue to go on a slide, it wouldn't necessarily be in your best interest because you want to see him to continue to take the next step. But at the same time, there's a lot of flexibility within this deal. You can always restructure it. You have $33 million in theory to play around with in case things go south. So this is a good deal for Travon Walker. And you even had one of his former Georgia teammates, a person in Christian Miller, who is now himself about to be an NFL draft pick in, just a couple weeks from now. And maybe some change depending on the particular round in which he is selected. But he said it best. Travon Walker wasn't even a day one starter at the program of Georgia. He had to work for years to get into a spot where the coaches decided to rely on him more as a player. And once he got that opportunity, he never looked back. Christian Miller was excited as hell when the news were broken while he was literally on a show, The Insiders, on the NFL Network with Tom Pelissero reading it off as it was going on. Or I think this is Ian Rappaport, actually. And that's something, honestly, in a situation like this where it's like, yeah, you're a player, you're securing that kind of capital for yourself after having to work that hard. When you truly put in the work like that, okay, to reach that milestone, it can be rewarding. And I'm sure that Travon Walker is ecstatic as hell to get the deal himself. It's about continuing to grind it out and continuing to elevate his play. And I'm sure that he's more than willing to adjust to that frame of mind. He's 25 years old, so he has yet to reach his prime. This isn't necessarily who he is. And there's a chance that you haven't seen the best of him yet. This is where it goes back into the mindset of projecting. No matter how much money is involved, for at least the next 4 years, you have him up until he is smack dab in the middle of his prime. There is still an exceptional amount of growth that he can attain. There are still a good amount of skills and maybe special moves that he can pick up on as an edge rusher over the next few years. He's not stopped developing as a player. And what you've seen so far, although it's a bit rocky, you like it. So you go ahead, you pay him now, And you don't have to worry about, again, maybe over-exceeding that limit, paying him far above what he might be worth at this time, and you secure yourself a damn good player in the process. That's what this all boils down to. This is a situation where the balance is ideal. The player gets a contract that he's looking forward to, and he gets to retain a spot in Jacksonville for at least the next few years. Keep your family there, secure yourself generational wealth, and all the while continue doing what you love to do. There's also enough security for the front office to start to back out of things if they do not go according to what their plan may be. So it's a solid move. As for New York, earlier in the week, it would be detailed that longtime nose tackle, defensive tackle, Dexter Lawrence would request a trade from the team. Now, this could be all smoke, no fire, because nothing else has really come out on this wholeheartedly just yet. Per the initial report from Adam Schefter, though, one could understand why he'd want out. It's no secret that when it comes to nose tackles, he has likely ushered himself into one of the best in the league over the past few seasons. The numbers will not really tell you that all the way. And even with some of the other metrics, they won't do it justice. All you have to know is that from 2023 to 2024, the man was a 3-time Pro Bowler back to back to back. And in 22 and 23, he had back-to-back All-Pro second-team selections as a nose tackle. It's interesting. Typically, you're thinking of nose tackles as being players who simply stop the run, clog up the lanes, and just give the ball carriers as little room as possible to explode through those particular gaps. They're the first line of defense. And it is their job in those contexts to just halt the swarm, halt the immediate big play from occurring before they even get a chance to get their feet under themselves and start to map out their own direction in the backfield. Cloud up their ball carrier vision and do not let them get free under any circumstance, especially if they're running up the middle or if you have a chance to shed a tackle immediately and get them just before they try to make a sharp cut or a twist to the outside. And Dexter Lawrence, in his case, seems to have a combination of skills in his arsenal. Because what those seasons will show you is that, yes, he can do that a lot. He's up to 341 overall tackles in his career, along with 40 tackles for loss and 185 solo tackles. Quite simply, if he is, think of it as an Oklahoma drill. If you're a ball carrier and he has no blocker guarding him whatsoever, trying to hold him off, if it is just you and him, you're going down. You're not going to find many people who, again, once he bear hugs you, the man, as I'm seeing here, is literally 6'4", 340 pounds. Do you think your small ass is going to squirm away from Dexter Lawrence II? Hell no. He's got you at that point. And once he gets his hands on you, it is a wrap. It is as simple as that. Now, yes, he can be juked out, and occasionally he'll get trucked, but guess what? It rarely happens. Sometimes the better running backs out there are going to make plays, and you live with that. But you like to see that efficiency rate from Dexter Lawrence II. So not only does he do that, he also has an ability to generate some sacks. He's got 30 and a half. Now again, across his 7 seasons of work, that doesn't necessarily sound like much. But at the same time, some of these particular years, he had 7.5 in 2022. He had 9 in 2024. And you're thinking to yourself, damn, that just gives them another arsenal to work with. The way the Giants have been trying to situate this thing is that while it hasn't been perfect, they want to try to build from the inside out. And, they've kind of skipped a few steps here because their cornerback selections, when you look at Deontay Banks, when you look at Cordell Flott, who is now a Titan, when you look at them going out in the offseason last year and getting Paulson Adebo, they've tried to plug that in, and it hasn't really worked out all that much. Putting even more pressure on a pass rushing unit that consists of Lawrence II, along with Thibodeau, who has shown some flashes but tends to be a little bit inconsistent. And then also Brian Burns, who, for as much credit as Myles Garrett gets last season, for as much credit as a guy like Aiden Hutchinson gets for how well he was able to rush a passer last year, Brian Burns was actually in the running. I mean, consider this. Yes, you look at some of the sack leaders from last year, and yeah, I can just come to this right here. Brian Burns himself had 16. So trust me when I say that the Giants are not devoid in any sense of sack masters. Believe me, they have got the ability with some of their players to pull that off. But, of course, the way the Giants' defense has been, man, they will get stretched the hell out. Especially with people being able to exploit a weaker cornerback room. They just fucking... They got after it. Yeah, Brian Burns, again, literally, you give credit to all those guys. The Nick Bonitos, the Tuli Pelotus. Shout out to them. Even Will Anderson Jr., and we'll get to him in a bit. Brian Burns, and again, it wasn't particularly close if Myles Garrett is going to get to 23. Man had 16.5 sacks last season. So it's not like you can, even with Myles Garrett setting that history, you can't just lose that to time. He was the closest guy out of every other edge rusher in the league to Myles Garrett last season. And in a similar way, it didn't necessarily lead to wins, which is something that I think is ultimately driving Dexter Lawrence II's decision here. It really doesn't get any simpler than that. You have to consider that he was drafted in 2019, and pretty much every single year, it is the same story. He goes out, he does as best as he can to put on his own individual effort for this team. And, he does get credit for it in some instances. Of course, his only playoff appearance as a New York Giant came in that 2022 season. And it turns out, with the way that things have gone every single year since, that was the exception, not the rule for this Giants team. In 2019, they went 4-12. And it just consistently sees them, from a season-to-season basis, go on these losing streaks to where they don't even have a chance to contend for playoff action at all. Dexter Lawrence II is the kind of player that wants to compete for much longer than just up to early January. He wants to try to go on some of these playoff runs. You consider where the hell Dexter Lawrence came from. He was there for that entire stretch of at least 3 years where it was just Clemson and Alabama facing off against each other in the college football national championship game. You think he wants to consistently settle for this underwhelming performance from this team on a season-to-season basis? Hell no. His talent commands, honestly, a lot more than what the Giants have been putting out there over the past few seasons. And it is a time of change for the Giants, admittedly. Of course, they get John Harbaugh. Somehow, they bring over all these Ravens players, and they do add another one to the mix. I'll get to that later, too. They could be in the mindset of, hey, now we're actually going to work to maximize our potential as a team. And you hope that Harbaugh brings that mindset. It could be Dexter Lawrence just calling their bluff, but at the same time, I think that he might be trying to get ahead of things here. He doesn't want to keep on living in this realm of uncertainty with this Giants team, especially when the history of his tenure there has suggested that this is not how they operate. They're not trying to necessarily win. And if he does continue to stick through with this trade request, would want to go somewhere who actually is looking to compete. He's still just in the prime of his career. He's 28 now, going on 29 later in the regular season. So he's still got a lot more left in the tank. That's not a question at all. He has been a mostly durable player also, considering how much he's been asked to do for that Giants roster. That's also impressive. So none of those things are issues for him. It's just a matter of, okay, can I actually realize my potential on a true, established championship contender? Seriously. That is all that I am asking for. So, again, only time will tell if he does stick through with it. Even Harbaugh, made the allusion to, and that was the most recent report on things. Not necessarily anything involving player movement from Dexter Lawrence II. Just Harbaugh making the point that, hey, once he sees exactly what we're trying to build here, more than likely we'll be able to keep him around. He doesn't make too much of it now. But hey, don't have that mentality and then fuck around and lose your legitimate number one defensive tackle. Yes, he's kind of slid all over the place. They actually were playing him at end for some reason, which didn't really make a lot of sense. Because again, considering what he's been able to do at the nose tackle and defensive tackle positions over the past few years, that's more natural for him. But I digress. You look at the Giants team in general, and let me see if I can take a look at their depth chart. Because, quite frankly, if they do lose Dexter Lawrence II, do the Giants even remotely have a backup plan? Considering the kinds of players that they were fielding out there at that position when Dexter Lawrence II wasn't out on the field, I think not. I'm not going to lie to you. But I want to make sure, because again, it could change from season to season. There is certainly a way in which they can turn this around. Yeah, let's take a look, see at this, because I am very interested. Of course, we know up to this point in the offseason, the Giants have lost some of their defensive talent, if you can even call it that. But hey, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, literally. Okay. Sam Roberts, Marlon Tuipulotu, Roy Robertson-Harris, Darius Alexander, and Elijah Chapman, as of the recording of this video, are the other 5 overall nose tackle, defensive tackle players on this Giants roster. Yeah, nothing. Nobody. For all intents and purposes, you have Roy Robertson Harris taking over this defensive tackle spot alongside him. From a Seahawks fan who saw the team get Roy Robertson Harris, he didn't do jack shit. You want to have an extra body out there, fine. But for him to be your number one defensive tackle when he literally struggles to both perform in the pass rush from that position and also struggles to be a run stopper at that position, that is no bueno for the Giants. Chances are they're going to look to try to draft another defensive tackle at some point, and honestly, you have to give it a shot. The way they do play defense as well, in some cases, it is just Dexter Lawrence II out there. So maybe it's not always going to be that much of a problem, but I am not, under any circumstances, relying on anyone else outside of Dexter Lawrence II, as it looks like right now, to get the job done at that spot if I'm New York. So they need to figure it out. If Dexter Lawrence II follows through with this trade request and actually does leave the team, then there isn't much that you can do at that point. But either way, this is something they have to be thinking about. Because in the event that he does, your best defensive tackle is Roy Robertson Harris. Let that sink in, y'all. Let that sink in for a second. Roy Robertson Harris would be their de facto starting defensive tackle or nose tackle in an instant if Dexter Lawrence II decides to leave. Yeah, fucking right. Although this isn't going to be too extensive, there is a follow-up with the Indiana-Illinois debate over the new Chicago Bears stadium that I've been tracking for pretty much over the past year and some change. Obviously, I've covered it on this channel across a few videos, and I most recently talked about one where, hey, Indiana themselves, compared to what Illinois has been doing over this time, all the way back to 2022, mind you, they were able to swiftly give themselves agency, literally, to build a new property in Indiana. Smaller town in Indiana, but Indiana nevertheless. One that is near 15 minutes away from the current Bears Stadium at Soldier Field. So, if that goes through, which again, it did unanimously in the Senate, by the way, upon confirmation, if they can actually get that language worked out behind the scenes and the Bears are actually willing to make that decision to move, they're heading to Indiana. Hammond, Indiana, I believe, is what the city was. So, that put Illinois on notice, as salty as they want to be about it. Because, as I said then, damn it, you have to fucking compromise at some point. If you truly don't want to lose the Bears to Indiana, you have got to find a way to bunker down and actually come to an agreement on something at some point. Because you've been stalling the process over years now. Indiana wasted no time. They had a clear-cut plan from the beginning. They got all of their people, or most of their people, on board for it, and they made the move just like that. And you're still stuck trying to navigate yourselves around your own side of the coin here. At that point, it's like, how can you be surprised that you're in this spot right now? Things just got a little more interesting for the Illinois government in that sense. Because the Bears, per Adam Schefter, are set to make a decision on their new stadium location in the next few weeks. Now, again, that's just generic, right? There's no real way to understand the exact date in which the Bears are going to make that decision. All this report tells you right now is that it's coming. Sooner rather than later, they will sit down and have a talk about this and eventually come to a conclusion about whether they want to remain at Soldier Field for now and rely on a new stadium somewhere in Illinois, not at Arlington Heights as was originally suggested, or a different location in Chicago, like the report said, but anywhere else. Have that be green lighted and wait until their lease is up to move in state, or pack their bags and again play out their lease, but move over to Indiana when it is up. Set their sights for Hammond and just completely land there. Get all your properties in order around it. Get all your establishments in order around it. And allow that money to make itself for that particular city. And also Indiana in general, with them, in that case, having two pro football teams in just one state. So again, that clock is ticking. They better, again, get to work right now. Whatever language you need to work out, just do it. And no matter what, you can have all the disagreements you want to. And that's fair. Try to actually learn something from them and come prepared before this goes down to actually come up with a plan that can counteract Indiana's and maybe even swing things back in your favor. Because again, this amount of time that you fail to compromise and don't want to agree on anything, Indiana is on the up and up in this. They have the edge here. It's not a competition, but they have got you exactly where they want you. Perplexed and without direction. As you are nearing this particular event. So something's got to shake for you at some point. You would think, and I would hope that they're taking that to heart, because as much as the Illinois governor himself has, been around Illinois for that much time, grew up as a Bears fan, doesn't want to see them leave the state at the same time. Get your people in order and make sure that they are moving with the same kind of urgency and true care for this subject matter to get it done. Now, that is a little crazy to say as well. There is obviously a lot more than just the football component that they would have to focus on as a government. But in this context, if you don't want to lose them, you're going to have to try to work a little harder. And you're going to have to try to at least just find some sort of common ground soon. And I mean very soon. Don't wait until the day of. Again, have a plan. Create a true direction for yourself. And you may be able to salvage this. That is the idea. Because that deal for Indiana, in the business sense, is looking sweet. Very. For both sides. Even without the whistle truly being blown on it, because again, they have not come forth and said anything about actually moving there. The bill was passed, and they have this up in legislation now in the event that both sides agree on making a move. They still need Chicago's word. They still need the Bears' word that this will be done. And they haven't done that yet. That is what this next step is going to be. So Illinois, hey, you better come correct and you better come ready to put anything you need to on the line. Things that make sense within reason, of course, to ensure that the team stays there. Moving on to the Patriots, who recently traded a player who might not appear to have that much value to the team, but was a key piece of their special teams unit. Apparently, they traded Marte Mapu as well as a 2027 7th rounder to the Texans in exchange for a 2027 6th rounder. Reality, this doesn't sound like much. You know, those late round picks, again, you're not expecting the hit rate to be high on any of those. It's just a matter of retaining some form of reasonable capital. And the Patriots accomplished what they needed to from that sense in this deal. Looking at Marte Mapu again, he was more of a special teams player with this throughout his career. Most of his reps in year 1 and year 3 were played at special teams. He reached a 58% tally in terms of special team snaps last year. And interestingly, although he traditionally played that role, he did actually appear as a strong safety in 2024 and started 9 games while playing 72% of defensive snaps. So that is definitely intriguing to say the least. Again, the numbers will not really do him justice because, again, he hasn't gotten that much opportunity, and more than likely in the Patriots system, that is for a reason. I mean, obviously, you can see that, okay, sure, maybe he's starting to progress just a little bit as a player from 23 to 24. At the same time, I don't think y'all understand just how bad those Pats teams were. And I guess we are saying this as they come off of the last year of Bill Belichick and the only year of Gerard Mayo. But, genuinely speaking, that Patriots team underwhelmed in every sense of the word. And their defense hit a massive, and I mean massive, wall of regression in those 2 seasons specifically. You know, if you're a player like Mapu, you want to continue getting that opportunity. Came in as an older rookie, so, you know, you're thinking in that moment, hey, he's pro-ready in a way. He's a late-round pick, but you know what? Let's see what he can provide for us early and often. Let's give him an early role. And again, it could be part of his presence out there. It could be a byproduct of just how terrible the defense was. But the results with him playing a high percentage of snaps were not even remotely good for this Patriots team. And it is what led them to one of the worst records in the NFL in 2024. It's why they had all that room as well to go out in 2025 and fill out each and every single weak point that they had on that side of the ball. Especially in the front 7. Especially. You get Harold Landry II. You get Robert Spillane. You get Milton Williams. You get Kaleb Chason, who is now a Commander as of the recording of this video and as detailed earlier in the offseason in a different recap that I had. All to ensure that you were way stronger as a defensive unit than you were last season. And that ended up being the case. They rode that momentum all the way to the Super Bowl. while having, at least in the first 3 games of that playoff run on the AFC side, a historical tear as a defense, only equating to the 2000 Ravens. That's how good that defense was. And it's why Zach Kerr as well, who had been filling in at the interim position while Terrell Williams had been battling with his pancreatic cancer. And again, now he's cancer-free, as I've also detailed in an earlier video. But Zach Kerr steps in, and he has them going to absolute work. They just suffocate offenses on a week-to-week basis. And you know what? He played himself into a full-time DC role. So while you can't necessarily fault Mapu for every single inconsistency with this defense, they had to start phasing his presence in it down along with other players in order to get better and also give room for those free agents to make this impact on this Patriots team, which worked for them. Now, Mapu still got himself a few reps on defense every now and then. He still got some plays in, and he was able to log a few tackles overall while getting himself 5 pass deflections and an interception on the year. But again, as a rotational player, as a backup, he is going to find himself more serviceable. And that can end up being the same thing with the Texans. They themselves, as a team, are stronger, even, if you want to say, as an overall defense. And they have their EJ Speeds, their Aziz Al-Shires. They're not necessarily going to need Marte Mapu to play each and every single snap. But as a special teamer, he could be a valuable piece. If you need him to step in for a few plays while one of those guys is injured, he's a valuable piece. And that's what the Texans are looking for here, especially as they understand that, you have a few guys that you're going to be paying very soon. And so any kind of move that you can make, even if it is for relatively cheap, to try to add to this team is something worth considering, especially when you consider this next development. They would exercise the 5th-year options on C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson Jr. Me bringing up C.J. Stroud immediately after talking about the Patriots might have triggered a little bit of PTSD, especially for the Texans fans out there. And again, as I was seeing the post from Adam Schefter on Instagram about it, you had different people follow up and say, Will Anderson Jr. deserves it. C.J. Stroud, they were iffy about it. Some were just flat out like, no, they shouldn't have done this because C.J. Stroud is not a man that deserves to get paid. What I will say about it is that, yes, the Patriots defense shellacked his ass throughout the entire game. The fact that it got so bad that by the halftime period, you had Damian Woody out here talking about this man being lost in the sauce and having to be alerted by people that, hey, you're in the playoffs, you're here. Does he even know where he, again, yes, he might have been joking and riffing around a little bit, but to play with C.J. Stroud like that in that moment is crazy. And you genuinely have to question it. That first half was absolute doom. And I'm sure that, again, they're still carrying this even into the offseason. That team knows that. He himself knows that. And they're going to want to do everything in their power to get better from that moment. And he will try his absolute hardest to improve from that situation. It is hard to let one game define a player and be the difference between a player getting a contract and not. It's hard to do it. However, it does happen, especially when you get to the bigger and grander stages of the NFL, through the playoffs and even the Super Bowl. Those things are genuinely a reality. And with CJ Stroud, yes, that one game is obviously something he'd like to get over. But the entire playoff run from last season was questionable, to people's point. Because it's not like he was truly clean throughout the entire postseason. That defense, same defense for the Texans, proceeded the week earlier to put belt to ass, especially in that fourth quarter, against the Steelers to make it a 30-6 ball game. Consider that the Texans up to that point, especially in the fourth quarter, hadn't done much themselves. Turnover after turnover after turnover was committed by that Texans offense. A lot of them coming from CJ Stroud fumbles. So he'd been struggling the entire playoffs with protecting the football. It's not like it just came out of nowhere in that Patriots game, even if revisionist history wants to take over. That had been a theme throughout the playoff run. And even when you look at the overall body of work, in some cases you can't control injury. But from an on-field production standpoint, CJ Stroud came right in and had a stellar rookie season, winning Offensive Rookie of the Year in 2023. And it genuinely was that damn good. But what is even more alarming from the Texans front office perspective is that while it's been marginal each and every single year after that, he has regressed in output. Each and every single year across the board. Again, he missed 3 games due to injury last season, but even then, he went from 23 touchdowns in 2023 to 20 in 2024 to 19 in 2025. He finished with a career low 3,041 yards in 2025. He had 8 interceptions, which was down from his career high 12 in 2024, but still, especially with that sample size, something that they would like to see improved. Regressing yards per game. He had the same amount of game-winning drives in 2024 with 2. All across the board, he has taken a step back. And while you are the Texans, understanding that, as an expansion team, the ability for them to really get top-end quarterbacks has been non-existent for a while. It was David Carr. It was Tom Savage. It was Matt Schaub. It was Brock Osweiler. It was Brandon fucking Whedon. All these rotational backup level quarterbacks logging starting caliber minutes. Hell, it was CJ Yates. It was AJ fucking McCarron, I think. Or I might be mixing it up. All those quarterbacks who, again, didn't amount to much of anything outside of Matt Schaub occasionally. But again, by that point in his career, his best years as a player were behind him. So again, top-end quarterbacks, not necessarily their forte in retaining until they got Deshaun Watson. And it was good while it lasted. We know what happened with that. But they were immediately able to recuperate and get their hands on CJ Stroud. So having him is just as important to their future success as anybody else. And I mean literally. Because once they lost Deshaun Watson, even with the entire conversation around that being a bit, unorthodox, okay? You did not have that elite quality at the quarterback position for at least a good few months. And you had to try, at least in some way, if you could, to get that back immediately. And this is to the point that, the Browns were trying to activate that stupid-ass proposal in the annual league meeting. This trade for Deshaun Watson is the reason why. You consider what they gave up, and one of those picks ended up being at least let me just go back because I want to make sure of that particular detail. But what I can say now before getting here is that you're in the Texans position in the 2023 draft, and you are able in that moment to go back to back with those draft picks and select Will Anderson Jr. and select C.J. Stroud. Yeah, this 2023 first round pick. Let me just see, because yes, you have that. Yep. Yep. They were able to flip this pick in the craziest way imaginable. It didn't end up amounting to much of anything. In reality, it was the 12th overall pick. But again, you get C.J. Stroud at number 2, and this is why, again, an idea to exercise both of their fifth-year options is fitting. It's because you get C.J. Stroud at 2, you trade all the way up from number 12 with the Cardinals to get your hands on Will Anderson Jr. at number 3. And boom, a double dip of historical proportions that has, again, even if the Texans, have kind of hit a wall compared to what they were, especially as a startup team, they are actually in the conversation for being year in, year out playoff contenders. And D'Amico Ryans has made the playoffs each and every single year as a head coach with this Texans team since 2023. Of course, Texans fans at this moment are going to want more. And that is the issue here. You see C.J. Stroud taking these steps back, and it's like, yes, we invested a second overall pick in him. Yes, we want him to be our franchise guy, but at the same time, this is year 3, and he's already starting to regress a little bit. Hold on, let's caution this. So we're going to wait this out a little bit, and we're going to make it to where, for C.J. Stroud, we could extend him this offseason, but we can also allow him to go out there and actually prove himself. He's still very young. He will be 25 on October 3rd. So by no means is this the final evolution of C.J. Stroud. But at the same time, you might want to hold on. You might want to caution this for just a second. If you're Houston, and play this safe. At least get another year of the rookie deal in for C.J. Stroud and see what he can put out on display this coming season, and then make a decision. It is risky at all times to, manage contracts like this. It definitely has its risks, but the Texans are more than willing to conform to that. Now, the same could be said in theory for Will Anderson Jr., but compared to C.J. Stroud, the man that they were able to swoop away from the Cardinals, because again, yes, the Browns themselves, again, they screwed their own damn selves over and they deserve to pay the price for it. Not trying to bail themselves out. But again, at number 12, there isn't a guarantee that they would have done the same thing in terms of trading up with the Cardinals to get Will Anderson Jr. It's a possibility, and again, you still could have gotten somebody very good. But again, nevertheless, Will Anderson Jr. will also be 25 on September 2nd. Again, another young player who just came right in from day one and is just an absolute fucking beast. I mean, is there really anything else to say about it? Again, compared to some other edge rushers in terms of the numbers, there were probably a few players out there who might have had stronger seasons. But Will Anderson Jr. put himself into elite territory last year, especially after following up on a season where he did finish in some realm of candidacy for AP Defensive Player of the Year in 2024 after posting his first 10-plus sack season with 11 sacks and 16 tackles for loss. He went up that with a season of dominance on a Texans defense that was one of the most dominant in the NFL for the entire season. He had himself 3 pass deflections along with 3 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, a scoop 6, 12 sacks, 54 tackles, and 20 tackles for loss with 23 quarterback hits. And also, again, although it doesn't really do that much, as I'm seeing on Pro Football Reference as well, his approximate value of 20 was also league leading. Do with that particular metric what you will. But all of that to say that this man, again, was a pressure monger, a fear monger, if you will, coming off that fucking edge. His combination of size and speed at that position is damn near unmatched. And it made this Texans defense a literal terror to deal with week in and week out, especially when you have Daniel Hunter to confront on the other side. If it isn't him and you have to double team Daniel Hunter, you have Will Anderson Jr. coming your way. If you have to double team Will Anderson Jr., you have Daniel Hunter coming your way. And if you're going to try to double team both of those guys, well, then you've got pressure coming up the middle from a guy like Jalen Petre or one of their corners, like Kamari Latster, who is a great tackling corner, great blitzing corner, just a perfect complement to what Derek Stingley Jr. does on the other side. Like, the defense is literally a full unit in sync. So there's no way that when you have an opportunity to at least clear a path for Will Anderson Jr. to maybe extend him, you do it. And you do it now. And you don't even worry about waiting. Yes, the Texans had already put themselves in interesting territory because while all the money isn't guaranteed, they did hand Daniel Hunter a $40 million contract for a single year. Only $22 million of it is guaranteed, or somewhere in between $20-30 million. Not all of it is guaranteed. No matter what, though, they understand that Will Anderson Jr. is their big fish here. And so you'd expect that his contract, at the very least, will be of top 5 edge rusher value. And he does have the chance as well to reset the market if the Texans are feeling that froggy about it. He truly does. He is that damn good already as a player. And again, this isn't even the best version you've seen of him yet. In theory, that is scary for the rest of the NFL. Truly scary. Should invoke fear in everybody's heart. So again, those are smart moves. Kaleb McGary the Falcons right tackle would retire from the NFL at the age of 31. He did this yesterday, and it's just a very tough situation for him. I mean, McGary, in his case, already entered the NFL as a fairly old rookie, age of 24. And, he had been somewhat fine as a tackle for this team. However, it's just with him and that entire Falcons roster in a way, he had just been battling through so much. And that line in general had to shift through a number of different combinations throughout the year just because of how their guys were getting hurt throughout these seasons. McGary himself, I think, despite playing in mostly every single game that he started in, he did take up a high percentage of snaps, was also playing through nagging injuries. That in ways, unbeknownst to me, a person watching from the outside looking in, on one end, maybe they are minor. On another end, they could be truly devastating. And in an even deeper realm, maybe he's being told off to continue playing. Maybe he is getting second opinions and having people suggest to him that he can fight through it. Or, again, seeing just how depleted they were, he is taking it upon himself to try to battle through these injuries and play through them. So any number of things could line up with that. But nevertheless, we truly have no idea of why exactly he chose to call it a career at this time. Now, he did miss the entire last season again with injuries, probably dating back to all of these different things I just mentioned here. But what you do hope is that, again, he is making the best decision for himself at the end of the day. And to be fair, if he was dealing with all this underlying stuff, and it has truly gotten to him in such a way, the best course of action is for him to try to take that prolonged rest. Because depending on just how bad this got, some of this stuff is irreversible damage. And no matter what he does, he may not be able to regain some of those functions. Best to try to get ahead of that and not have anything else reach that trajectory. Keep yourself intact and in full force. That is ultimately the key. We wish him all the best moving forward. And again, we don't have the clarity as to why. But again, as long as he is trying to do what is right for him and his family, you can't really question a decision like that. Moving on to the Falcons in full now, because seeing that they now have an immediate vacancy at the tackle position. Considering that McGary's out, considering how many guys behind him got hurt last year, and also recognizing that Jake Matthews, as good as he is, he himself also does not have that much left in him as a player. Like he himself, as good as he is, and has been for years, he is 34 years old. So, again, you don't always want to look at the age and say, he's old this, he's old that. But for a trench player, that veteran leadership helps. However, man, his ability to remain a core piece of this team could be dwindling a little bit. Luckily, to this point of his career, he himself has been an Iron Man, playing in each and every single game, 196. Without question. Every single game. So that's a testament to his durability. But you also, again, understand that all it takes is one play sometimes. And all of that can be erased. So you have to be careful when treading this kind of water. And you have to find yourself a plan in some way. So the Falcons would decide to get someone to operate alongside him. And, I mean, you could say that this is a guy they would sign yesterday, Jawaan Taylor, to a 1-year deal worth up to $6 million in total money. Yeah. Now again, we are very familiar with what Jawaan Taylor does over here. The youth movement helps. It does. And when he actually wants to be, he can be a reliable blocker at that position on the right side. It's the perfect idea to replace the recently retired McGary with a player who you know can step in and give you quality production at that spot. He himself has also, again, appeared in 111 games and started in all of them. So you're going to get some form of consistency from him no matter what. And with them having to, again, rotate through all of those practice squad level, 4th string, 5th string tackles throughout the season, you need that stability. Especially with whoever you were throwing out there at quarterback. Unconventional as it may be, because you associate this with left tackles, Jawaan Taylor comes in as the premier blindside blocker for either of Michael Penix Jr. or Tua Tagovailoa, because they're both lefties. So their field of vision is naturally going to be to their left. They will not be able to see on their right side. They can try to cut across peripherally every now and then. But that is not the reality. They will constantly have their back turned. And at moments in both of their careers, they have been left out to be sitting ducks as a result of, again, poor blocking. What I will say is that, again, Jawaan Taylor, when it comes to the penalties, we know how agonizing those can be for teams. And you want him to clean that shit up. I mean, come on, bro. Like, you're 28, going on 29. You should have this figured out already. Gotta stop with the penalties. We gotta stop with them fucking false start shits. Have to stop with that stance. It is just genuinely that ridiculous at this point. But that aside, you need that kind of protection for either one of those quarterbacks. And so sealing it up with Taylor was the most important thing. And you know what? Traditionally, you have to expend a lot of money. Expound, rather, a lot of money on a blindside blocker. To get him for $6 million in total money, maybe even less than that, taking out some of the incentives in signing bonuses, it could be a steal. It could be a sneaky little steal to have. And you will take it. Moving on to the Giants, as I mentioned, they are continuing to stockpile on former Ravens players. And you know what? With this particular one, honestly, do Ravens fans even really give a flying fuck about? I can guarantee you they don't give two shits about this. But it happened yesterday because per Adam Schefter and other sources, the Giants signed Daniel Faalele. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. They signed Daniel. Okay? So let's just look at this. Just be fair. Because let's consider this situation for the Giants. I get it, okay? You want to get the most out of Jackson Dart. You want to get the most out of him. I get that. I get that. And so their solution is comical. Because, get ready for this. Oh, man. Okay. So, you have Andrew Thomas. And in reality, Andrew Thomas is their best offensive lineman. Their most consistent guy. His thing is health. He cannot stay healthy. He can't. You want him to be out there as a blindside blocker. But again, the injury history is just extensive with him at this point. And so you turn to Jermaine Illuminor, who they re-signed this offseason. And I get that you want to invest that kind of capital in a blindside blocker. But hear me and hear me good. Because what do you think the right side of that offensive line looks like? You have a man in Evan Neal who was injured last season, who is also now re-signed to the Giants again, who is literally being paid nothing in guaranteed money, not a dime of that $1.2 million this season is guaranteed for Evan Neal, and he's going to be the right tackle for this fucking Giants team. Even worse, Faalele played a high percentage of his snaps, especially in 2024, as a right guard. So while Jackson Dart can't see his blind side, he will see multiple defenders screaming in his field of vision. Because do you really trust Evan Neal and Daniel Faalele to do their jobs and block their men in pass protection? Do you trust them to not get beat in run support? Do you really want to trust that? That is a right sign of fucking hell for New York. And there is absolutely no way around that whatsoever. Go ahead. Go look. Throw them out there. Game 1. Preseason. Damn it. Throw them out there for even a drive. See how long either of them last in doing their jobs. And you have no choice because, again, as of right now, they're the de facto starters the second that move went through. So if you're the Giants, your right side maybe even all the way through to your center, is fucking non-existent. Because you wanted to go out and have a player come along with John Harbaugh to follow the Raven way. This man is literally one of the reasons why they struggled to protect Lamar Jackson last year. And he's more athletic than most quarterbacks in the NFL. Do you really believe that Jackson Dart is going to survive? You want Jackson Dart to stop doing all these design quarterback runs as well. What the fuck makes you think he's going to want to stand in the pocket, is going to have enough poise to stay there upright and try to fire off passes as pressure is again screaming from his field of vision? He can instantly see it. And at some moments, it might be too fucking late. They're already there. How many times did you see Daniel Faalele laying flat on the fucking ground with his 6'8", 370 ass? All out of proportion because he could not use that size and apparent strength to his advantage. The man was literally getting picked up on. And I watched a fucking Michael McKelvey video about weak links. He is the definition of a weak link. Again, not every single offensive lineman can be perfect. And as a Seahawks fan who had to deal with the fucking Anthony Bradford slander throughout the entire season, and Daniel Faalele fucking exacerbates that point by 1,000 fucking times. And you're putting any amount of investment whatsoever in signing him. And again, ironically, he's going to come in with a guarantee on his contract, something that Evan Neal doesn't fucking have. What is that? What is that? You're going balls to the wall to get former Ravens. And that was the player, another player, that you decided to bring over. You're better off drafting a right guard than trying to put your faith in a man who is literally a football terrorist every time he steps out on the field. How many people did you see call this man out on a week-to-week basis? Didn't Shannon Sharp fucking tell you about this nigga already? You're having somebody come in there and do that and be paid to do that at the right guard position, and you're allowing this somehow. Are we fucking trolling? Is this... Somebody's associated with this. Clearly, it's John Harbaugh. No, we can't put this one on Joe Shane, guys. He's got Joe Shane locked in a jail. Right, Joe? He has nothing to do with this. This is a John Harbaugh move all the way. And I just don't know. I don't get why Faalele is your decision. You would think he's the fucking golden goose or something. No. No shot. No shot in fucking hell. That is your starting right guard. All that tells me is that, oh yeah, point him out. Slim Pickens, licking my fucking chops as an edge rusher, as a defensive tackle, any position. Shit. As a fucking safety, even. Because there were cornerbacks who were able to just slither in because this man Faalele was looking in other directions as they were blitzing from the other side. And he was left in the fucking dirt as Jackson touched earth because they didn't do their jobs. And now you trust him to do the same for Jackson Dart. Get real, please. All the fucking concussion shits that Jackson Dart had to deal with, regardless of what Cam Scatterbull says about CTE, you don't think he's going to have to deal with that even more now? Because again, he's scrambling for his fucking life. And I guarantee it. They can go through all the practice reps in training camp, in OTAs. And he's going to be left running for his fucking safety at every single point. Every single drop back is going to be a fucking nightmare. In an uphill battle, it's already enough to have to deal with me versus these defenders. Now it's got to be me versus my own fucking right side of the offensive line. Because Neal and Faalele can't do shit. And now you're trying to make them out to be a dynamic duo when they have not done shit. They are liabilities, the both of them. And you want to amplify that by having them again naturally play the same fucking side with each other. What is the thought process behind that bullshit? There is no way that should even be possible. You can't possibly be like, again, yes, the loyalty to the Raven way. That's the dumbest shit I've ever seen in my fucking life. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, you just coached this nigga. Oh, you thought he was going to provide something special. You thought you saw potential in Daniel Faalele. Again, his reputation as a player is why that buzzword potential has to stop being utilized for everybody. That is the reason. What has he shown you, Harbaugh, over your past 4 years with him? Potential. He hasn't shown you anything. And you've given him nothing but opportunities. He's been the starter in Baltimore for the past 2 seasons. And you've seen him go out there and just put on an absolute disaster class at that position. You've heard the fan base clamor, why? Get him off the team. And you want to bring his shitty ass over to New York with you when they already have a liability in Evan Neal over there. Don't let them be the best of friends. Don't let them become the best of friends in New York. Because, by goodness, if that shit happens, they're naturally going to just work together and truly try to put themselves in that category as disaster artists to literally self-sabotage the fucking Giants next season. They will single-handedly do that themselves. And yes, the Giants defense can be a bit of a punching bag every now and then, aside from their front seven. You know, they're trying to build that up. Fair enough. You can concede that. Don't worry. The death knell for this Giants team next season will be resting in the fates and actions of those two motherfuckers. Think about that shit. That's not a situation you want to be a part of, man. That's not. And again, like I said, for Ravens fans out there, they don't give a flying fuck about this. They're rejoicing. They're still rejoicing today. They are having celebrations about this. They don't fucking care that he's gone. Good luck. They couldn't care less. This is the textbook definition with the Ravens allowing Daniel Faalele to just walk because, if you're actually delusional, if you thought that he had some trade value, oh, hell no. Okay, the fact that you allow him to walk is the textbook definition of addition by fucking subtraction. The textbook definition. For themselves, they don't have a certain guy at the right guard position right now. They have a lot of different players to work through. Naturally, they drafted Emory Jones last year, who could slot in as a right guard. But again, they have to test it out. Nothing's for sure. What they knew is that, again, if they keep Daniel Faalele, and hell, it's now getting to the point where you have to blur the fucking name like it's a slur or something. If they kept his ass there, somebody's going to need an ambulance. You thought it was bad, the amount of injuries that Lamar Jackson dealt with last year. Bro, he's going to pass out, slip into a fucking coma if he has to continue dealing with Daniel Faalele out there. That's how bad this is going to get. You had no choice. We have to maximize, if you're looking at it from the Ravens front office standpoint, we have to maximize this window. We know that Lamar Jackson is this great as a player, and we have already lost some key pieces in our interior offensive line. Linderbaum, again, is obviously a huge loss. We're going to have to recuperate there, understandably. But one player that we cannot keep wasting our time trying to fucking develop is fucking Daniel. And so you're gone. You have to leave. That's that. There's no reason to continue holding on to him. Good on the Ravens. You deserve a round of applause for that. However marginal this may be, this is huge for them. And, oh man, yeah. All I'm saying is, man, hey, again, bro. Like Jackson Dart, bruh. Yeah, Jackson Dart is going to... It is not going to be a fun time for him out there. Having to go under center. The second he hands the ball off, Scadaboo's going to run into a wall of defenders if he's run into his right. If he drops back, bro, Dart is literally going to get folded like a fucking lawn chair within 3 seconds. Matter of fact, hell, you saw how quick Myles Garrett got off the line with his release for his record-breaking sack. Let's entertain this, actually. No, I want to see the Giants' schedule. Now, they don't do the schedule releases until May, I believe. But let's just entertain and see who the hell they have to deal with this upcoming season. Because I'm actually intrigued. I'm actually intrigued to see this. Okay. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So again, none of this is in order right now, but throughout this season, again, you're gonna have to deal with the Cowboys and the Eagles twice, especially. That rotating cast of edge rushers, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, it's already over. Already. The Colts are somewhat fine, but Laiatu has taken a step forward. And who knows what the Ohio Stater and JT Tuimoloau can do moving forward as a player. Rams? Yeah, Jarrett Verse, Braden Fisk, Kobe Turner are going to crumble those niggas. The both of them. That is easy money. The Commanders are an intriguing case. Now, of course, guys like Odafe Oweh and K'Lavon Chaisson could be taking over those positions and will still need to prove themselves. The Cardinals are up in the air a little bit. Josh Sweat is their main specialist. But even then, Daniel Faalele and Evan Neal are so bad, they'll make even the worst edge rushers look good. They'll make even the worst defensive tackles look good. They'll make even the worst cornerbacks be lucky every now and then and luck themselves into a sack just because. It's all a part of the brand. A fully healthy 49ers team with Fred Warner in full force, with Osa Odigizua now in full force, and with Nick Bosa potentially back in prime form. We've already talked about the Jaguars and how their defense is continuing to elevate. Those guys aren't going anywhere. They're going to mop the floor with them. The Titans, they're working to get to this point. To be fair. They're working at this. This will take time. And then my damn Seattle Seahawks play these niggas next season. Now, I did see this earlier. Hell yeah. We want that fucking matchup. Good luck in advance. Bruh, you're telling me that dynamic duo of hell on that right side has to heal or deal rather with that Seahawks defense, with that Seahawks front seven, with Nick Amon-Warrior crashing out the fucking gut and putting one of them on their fucking ass in run support or for a damn sack. Oh, I'm just imagining it already. It's light work. It is light fucking work. You want to talk about a mismatch? Did you not just see what the hell the Seahawks have already done? Especially to a unit that, again, with Jarrett Wilson and Will Campbell playing alongside each other in the Super Bowl, got absolutely toasted. Yes, Faalele and Evan Neal have more experience. Like, that means a goddamn thing. I mean, like, it literally just gets worse and worse and worse, and then boom. Lions, again, you got to deal with Aiden Hutchinson, buddy. Browns. Oh. Yeah. So, yeah, coming off a record-setting, career-high season in sacks. That side of Neal and Faalele will have to deal with a reigning Defensive Player of the Year in Myles Garrett at some point in the upcoming season. You are going to see, whenever that game takes place, no matter what week, you're going to see a fucking crime scene. I'm calling it. I'm calling that shit right now, depending on when the schedule is set up. No matter if the Seahawks play the Giants before the Browns do, or if it is the reverse, you're going to see a fucking crime scene unfold on that football field. Because Garrett and that deep pass rushing unit of the Seahawks will fuck up that right side of that Giants line so fucking bad. One of their careers is done after that game. One of them, if not both. Simply put. And then the Saints are up in the air a little bit. But Cameron Jordan still got it. And Chase Young has put together some solid seasons. Again, you have to be the best guy to get the upper hand on a shitty-ass duo like Daniel Faalele and Evan Neal. You don't need all of that skill. In fact, they are so great at their jobs that they will literally clear a path for you. They'll allow you at several different points in the game. They'll give you the lane. They'll literally turn to each other, signal to each other, and like a fucking gate opening, like a bridge pole opening up, they will literally turn inward like this, and they will allow the rusher to run right through the gap, untouched, unblocked, with no resistance, just because it's what they do. The law firm of Evan Neal and Daniel Faalele will lose each and every single battle out there in this upcoming season. They are not, like your average lawyer out there, going to win you every single case. They aren't even remotely guaranteed to do so. You can pay them all the money that you want to. You aren't paying Evan Neal a fucking dime. And you can ensure that they will fucking tank. Yeah. 100%. Like, this is just, I don't want to spend this much time, mind you, talking about the Giants and Daniel Faalele, because I'm actually giving this power. Again, good luck. Do everything that you have to do. Hell, they're going to need some fucking sage rituals or something. They're going to need something. Something not of this earth is going to have to find their way to seep into the culture of the team and keep Jackson Dart protected. A divine power has got to step in and prevent Daniel Faalele and Evan Neal from doing what they do best. That's what this is going to take. Unless that happens, just y'all wait. Just y'all wait. If Giants fans did not think that they were in a pretty rough spot now, oh my, yeah, bro. Seriously. Man, yeah, so, again, no way. But at the same time, I couldn't have possibly said anything wrong. I don't think I told a damn lie in that entire tangent. But I've said all I needed to say for now. Just wait, because it is going to be one of those things that become a comedic bit, in a way, for the next season. There you go. You have got it. If there was an NFL version 1-to-1 of Shaqtin' a Fool, they'd be on it every single week. Just wait for it. As we always say with the Cowboys, right? Just wait for this. Just you wait. This is gonna be exceptionally funny in just a few short months from now. This is. I don't know what the fuck the Giants are thinking. But again, allow them. Give them the illusion that they're making the right move for themselves. Entertain it for a while. They'll figure it out, hopefully, or will they? Sooner rather than later, right? All right. And then for a couple of other things here that honestly, getting off of that, are just crazy. On the one end, you have the NFL stopping and just completely doing away with their investigation on Rashee Rice for the number, and I mean number, of different allegations that he was facing. Some of very extreme quality, to say the least. And again, I'm sure that there are other things in the legal process still going on with it. From my end, with again, not necessarily reading up on every single thing, but keeping up with the updates through videos and things like that, detailing it, right? You have all this evidence in the documents that came along with it in the initial trial, and they were allowed. The photos of his ex-girlfriend, yes, came across them if you'd seen the documents. They paint a very damning picture in a way that allegedly very extreme physical things happened in the context of that relationship. And again, with all this stuff as well happening over the course of a year and a half. That was how extensive this information got. And still, the investigation is now done. Doesn't mean that Rashee Rice is fully cleared just yet. I don't think they've gone through that. But on the NFL's end, they step in and they say, hey, we've looked through everything, and you know what? This isn't really enough for us to suspend him at all. So he is able to return in a way. It is just very interesting. Again, their policy surrounding this misconduct has shifted a ton. It has shifted. Who am I to really understand why exactly, right? But I don't know. They just, quite frankly, it rarely, it don't happen every now and then, but rarely do they actually tend to go through and fully corroborate and cooperate in their involvement in cases like these. Like, even looking at the videos detailing it, again, they, made the point that, hey, if you have video evidence of this stuff and it's out there for the public eye, then the NFL does make the decision to intervene and lay down some severe punishments then. Namely, Ray Rice will be a player mentioned in that category because, of course, you had allegations come out for that, and then the subsequent video. Again, TMZ, all of that footage did release, and from that point, the NFL felt it was left with no choice but to make a firm decision, and a pretty harsh one, when he was initially suspended from the NFL and banned from it entirely at that point. I really don't know what it is with that. But again, you just hope that, again, if you are Rashee Rice and you are, able to get back from this, again, it's like from the perspective of somebody else, maybe surrounding themselves with him, like, is there anybody telling him, bro, you have to move fucking smarter. You cannot keep engaging in this bullshit. Keep your head down. Do what it is that you are doing on the field and with your family and keep it pushing. Stop engaging in all this bullshit. It is as simple as that. Easier to say than to do, I suppose, for some of these people, but whatever. Then this man had the nerve to come out and say he wants JSN money, but isn't nearly the same caliber of player right now, does not have the same kind of production to match, and has actually gone through injury troubles, which can typically happen for a wide receiver. It's not like it's anything against him. But JSN has maintained durability through the first 3 seasons of his career. And Rashee Rice has been all over the place. While being utilized in that system as more of a by committee, he can escalate into their number 1 wide receiver at times, but he hasn't firmly carved out that role for himself just yet. So that's to be determined. That was just a very delusional statement. Again, you gotta go out there and you gotta actually execute. Seriously, keep your head out of the bullshit. For, the person alleged to be involved also as a victim here. Like, if it is all still, again, in this case, if it truly ends and he's not, caught on anything or charged with anything, the NFL already ended their investigation. Again, legal processes are still taking place in it, I assume. Only they know right now whether or not these things actually took place. Even with the evidence in play through the photos, only they truly know whether or not this is true. You hope that it wasn't in the first place, and that, if it is proven to be still in some capacity, man, you hope that she is, at this point, able to get some justice in some way and able to keep herself safe from all of that. Because that's nothing you would wish on another person, ever, if those things are deemed to be as true as the documents would explain. And then, just to get it out here, because I might cover this in a different medium, but my fucking goodness, I tell you, I already covered the Mark Sanchez case when it was first posed, after he, on the eve of, his potential call for Colts-Raiders game early in the season, got himself allegedly so completely far out of it while at a bar in Indianapolis, was eventually forced to get out of the establishment, and then proceeded to start a quarrel, allegedly, under his own volition by entering the truck of a 69-year-old driver that he owned, allegedly, because he thought of a situation arising that wasn't even remotely the case at all, and then started to charge at him, allegedly. Eventually getting to a point where he was so beat up, the 69-year-old man, Perry told, that he had to, allegedly, in self-defense, respond, getting in a few clean shots on Mark Sanchez in what was labeled a stabbing at the time. And in the aftermath of all that, a lawsuit was followed by Toll, who again, when you go back and you read those reports and you come across some of the images, the man was sitting in a hospital bed. They had to blur his face, not even solely for the sake of keeping his identity private. It was littered with lacerations all over to where he was damn near disfigured in some particular areas of the face. That's how bad this allegedly was. Meanwhile, Mark Sanchez goes on this media run, making it out like he's the victim, allegedly, and then lying about it in the first public appearance since it took place, before reneging on that, and again, trying to make himself to be this victim of sorts in this entire event, allegedly. Didn't even seem apologetic about it at all, worrying more so about the effect it had on him, rather than taking into account what this 69-year-old man, a person old enough to be his fucking father, was going through. Allegedly. When that report came out, the man literally could not even make it to his daughter's wedding to walk her down the aisle because of the poor shape he was in. And he also, again, had all of these lacerations near the mouth, especially to where he could barely fucking talk, allegedly. The key thing from the police in the particular city in Indiana in which this took place, Indianapolis, of course, is that, again, regardless of what it was Mark Sanchez was doing, regardless of his status as a public figure, they wanted to send a message that he and other players who came to the city looking to cause that kind of trouble were not above the fucking law. That was the message the second this lawsuit was posed by Toll. And I don't know what the fuck is going on, but why is it that at every single milestone in which this thing is supposed to be taking place, this keeps getting pushed back? Keeps on getting pushed back. They had a date set for December 2025. It is April 9th when I am recording this shit. And for yet another fucking time, for whatever reasoning that we don't know, they have now pushed this hearing back again when it was supposed to be starting today. They pushed it back to May 28th for yet another fucking time. That is just some fucked up shit. Flat out. There is no other way around it. We don't have the details and the reasoning why. You're actually trying to fight this? You're actually trying to fight this and get off scot-free for these things that you allegedly did to a man who is old enough to be your fucking father. You understand, allegedly, you left this man in such poor shape that he could barely move and talk. And you're trying to fight this. Just to do what? Exactly. This whole aftermath got so bad to the point where an ex-spouse of Mark Sanchez even had to come out and talk about the idea of just how much of an asshole this man was. And again, some of that could be personal vitriol of a failed relationship. But at the same time, with how this man was trying to play himself up in the media, in the immediate aftermath following it, and now all this, for whatever reason, for at least the 5th time since the initial date was set, it is now being put on hold again. As Mark Sanchez gets to again engage in all kinds of stuff, while, as far as we know about Perry Toll, there's a good chance he is still dealing with some of the very injuries sustained in that fucking incident right now. Still trying to relearn how to walk and talk potentially right fucking now. While Mark Sanchez just gets to go on and do whatever. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand just how screwed up that really is. And I am hoping, I swear to fucking goodness, that date better be firm. It better start on May 28th. If I have to see this shit get delayed again, and it hasn't gotten a lot of coverage generally because, again, there is no new information particularly. All we've gotten are updates stating that they are looking to see if Mark Sanchez, again, 1, actually did these things, and 2, was actually under the influence when these things allegedly occurred. Those are the main objectives of the case, as we know. And that is it. But if this shit gets delayed again, somebody has got to bring this shit back up in a larger space. Somebody's got to. Somebody has to. For all intents and purposes, this is not a football thing. But for a player in Mark Sanchez and a commentator at that time to try to walk around in that way, the nigga wasn't even a good enough NFL quarterback to be acting like that. Let's make that perfectly clear, first and foremost. The nigga was not that special. And if not for 2 lucky back-to-back AFC title runs, the man would be a flat-out bust in the NFL. So let's make that perfectly clear. That's the hard truth. Nigga wasn't that fucking good as a player to be coming out and acting that kind of cocky and egotistical in the first place. If these things were genuinely what was going on in former relationships of his. And if that is the mentality that he is carrying himself around with after allegedly beating the shit, allegedly, out of a truck driver who is almost 70 years old, doing wind sprints in the bar, and then just preparing to start trouble and a fight with a father and a grandfather even, allegedly, to some people. But okay, you can have that. Fine. Now we're just playing this game to where he can just keep on trying to prolong this. For what? For what? What exactly are you trying to do? That is the ultimate question. Like, nah, they're not having that. You do not get to, and if all this stuff is true, or deemed to be true, you don't just get away with shit like that no matter who the hell you are. You don't. And you shouldn't. And the nerve of this guy, and his team, who again is probably going to be paid to do so, to try to fend this off. Like, no, that's not how this works. At fucking all. Like, it's time, bro. It is fucking time. Because, yeah, you can try to go for a settlement here. Undisclosed, high paying, whatever. And in some cases, that may work for some people. Just so you can shut them up. You don't get to do that. After literally changing the course of a person's fucking life, allegedly, with that. And then altering others in the same fell swoop because of your own decisions, allegedly. You don't get to do that. That is not how the law works. And that is not how justice works. So it's time to actually confront this case. What the fuck are you scared about? Not only would you be trying to make them pay, but there may also be a part of you and your team that knows that you did all these things that you were alleged to do. And there is footage out there of Sanchez in the bar and outside of it. And of the event in question. So you know that there is at least something that can alert a jury that, okay, you actually did this. And we are going to indict you. He is facing at least 5 charges right now. In this case. Some felonies. You know that. And so you're trying to play this waiting game and trying to see if you can settle for money. Money ain't worth that shit. The fucking money that you are trying to make this dude allegedly settle for so you can keep on delaying this case and try to negotiate something is not fucking worth his health. Is not worth those different lives you affected by single-handedly, allegedly, taking it upon yourself, do all that shit. On that Saturday night. It's not. And I am hoping that, again, this sticks. Who is the judge? Again, I gotta see who the judge is again. Grow some fucking backbone. And end this shit. Let this fucking case start. So that the people in question can actually get the fucking justice that they so clearly and more than likely, if these allegations are true, deserve. If you're actually going to try to make these people conform to the law and not try to play above it, end this shit, end this negotiation process. Some of it might have to deal with them getting the documentation together. But end this shit, starting on May 28th. Just fucking start it. Let the process work out. From there. Stop putting these delays on. Nobody has time for that shit. They don't have time for that shit. You are literally bending to the will of Sanchez's purported entitlement. Who the fuck does he think he is, and who the hell do you think you're making him turn out to be by constantly letting this process swing all the way over into the fucking new year, and now we nearly be halfway through it before this case actually fucking begins? Put a stop to this shit right then and right there. Start it up on May 28th. Whatever time frame they have set, just do it. The waiting game is over. Let the actual process of justice fucking start in this case's concern. Seriously. Like, you're that easily persuaded as a judge or justice in this case to keep on allowing these lawyers to convince you to push it back, to delay the trial. Again, to negotiate and also to try to find evidence as well to maybe counteract what Toll is saying. They could also be trying to find evidence to make Toll out to be a person who is not to be trusted or a little bit disingenuous himself. In a way, also. That could be another reason for this. And again, you're searching for months, tiptoeing around this. And they probably, hey, we don't know. We don't know as a public. I can tell you that more than likely, if you're still waiting all this time to delay the case, either you are trying your absolute hardest to make a compelling argument with truly profound evidence, or you don't have jack shit in the vault to find whatsoever. You have no argument. You have no rebuttal whatsoever. You have nothing to use against Toll in cross-examinations, in testify cases, nothing at all. Put a stop to it. Let it begin on May 28th. That is it. That is all. And with that, that will do it for this one. And again, that last part, I don't know about enjoying it necessarily. But, at the very least, either if you enjoyed the video, that's fine. If you learned something from this video, that's ideal. But I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.